ever worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. The one and only Boris. So Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2, episode 11 of the It's Canon podcast. That's right, part 2, main feature, It's Canon podcast. The podcast where we talk about all things, everything. We talk about all things comics, all things toys, all things movies, all things video games, all things toys. We bash Microsoft a lot, justifiably so. And the best part of it all is that it's all in canon. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Boris, and this week, this episode, this part, I am joined by Phil.
Hey, how is everybody?
Everyone's good. And Tyler.
I'm just saying reality has an anti-Microsoft bias.
Yes. So true. It is so true.
I think on our special, I declared myself Xbox agnostic.
I'm Xbox atheist. I don't actually believe it exists.
As you're wearing like the Xbox colors on your shirt.
Yeah, this is Spartan Race, though.
Yeah.
It's laundry day.
I think the Xbox exists. I just think the games are vaporware.
And you can hear more talk like that on our Halo being delayed special, which is already out. So if you're subscribed, you should check that episode out. It was a fun chat. Funny enough, Phil, we got a few DMs asking us what our thoughts are, because I think people are starting to think we're anti-Xbox.
It's quite possible. I don't know. But you know what? I've got an Xbox One S. I love it. I play it. I got that Game Pass thing. I'm going to check out Battletoads too.
Oh my god.
It's a big hit and title, man. Crackdown 3, some Battletoads 2. It's going to be awesome.
But we're not here to talk about Microsoft and their failings today. We're
here to talk about Fall Guys. It's on PS4.
Look, I've been playing lots of Ghost of Tsushima. Great game.
Fantastic
Another
game.
PlayStation exclusive.
We're here to talk about streaming services, Disney, and Mulan situation, and the uproar that has caused. We're also here to talk about the looming TikTok ban in the United States and what that actually means and how it actually could affect various industries. And I am having the most weird deja vu right now. It is so weird.
Okay.
What? Why?
I don't know. Like, I feel like I've already gone through this. Done this.
Yeah, it's been pounding on social media. It deserves to have our discussion and input. But I've been getting hit from multiple sources. Just the rabbit hole that's being created by this news. I guess we'll start with Mulan.
Yeah.
The minute that dropped, I got kind of pissed as a Disney Plus subscriber. Not that movie is aimed at me at all. All right. But the fact that it's $30 USD plus subscription.
Yeah.
And man, that's disrespectful.
So I want.
Let's before we get into the I hate I hate Microsoft.
He can't even stop himself.
The I hate Disney train. Let's chat about what is
clarification.
Exactly. Let's chat about what's actually happening. Mulan, originally slated to release March 9th, 2020. moved out a few times because of this little pandemic, COVID-19. A lot of questions were asked as people were wondering what's happening to all the movies being delayed. Disney announced that for $30 and a Disney Plus subscription, you will be able to watch Mulan on September 4th at Disney Plus for an extra $30. Now, this caused a lot of uproar. Obviously, Phil already shared his thoughts. He was not happy. Tyler, what were your initial thoughts?
I mean, my initial thoughts were why? And I don't mean why, like, why would Disney circumvent theaters? Because, I mean, I think that's their end game. I think that's like, everyone's like, yeah, that's the end game here. The end game is just, you know, you pay whatever. I don't, it's $30, and I'm betting they're suspecting, they want you to get a bunch of people over, or it's like your full family, and they want you to be like, it's cheaper than going to the theaters.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that especially, I think they're using us all like, it's an experiment, right? It's straight up an experiment.
It's an
to see
Correct.
what price they can get away with,
So
and you know,
some additional details. You will be able to keep Mulan on your Disney Plus account for as long as you subscribe. So you kind of
I was actually curious about that.
own it
Yeah.
in the DRM sense for however long Disney will allow you to own it. So we'll see what that actually means in practicality. Now, I'm going to be the devil's advocate in this conversation. I'm going to say this. They are testing the grounds, but they've already been doing this. So the idea here is that you're a family of 4, white picket fence, no theater because of the pandemic. Why would you want to go to a, dank and moist theater? So you're going to have the entire family or bring people over. You're going to spend $30. You'll be able to watch this movie. A typical outing to a movie theater can be up to $100 for a family. So for a third of that cost, you'll be able to watch the theatrical release of Mulan at home. That's, in practicality, hey, that sounds fantastic. The reality is, though, not everyone has a family. There are a lot of single people. There are a lot of twosies. And it does, it can add up. What if you're the type of person that would go to the theater, just buy your tickets, don't buy anything else? You're essentially paying the same, watching it at home. You're not getting the sound. You're not getting the big screen. You're not getting the comfort. There's a lot of things going on there. That's the unfortunate part. But going back to my initial point is that Disney has been doing this for a while. And I'll tell you where. ESPN Plus signed the exclusive deal for UFC and UFC pay-per-views. So the only way that you can actually watch a UFC pay-per-view is to already be subscribed to ESPN Plus. So that's, you have your fee for ESPN Plus. Then on top of that, you're going to be paying your $65 American to order your UFC pay-per-view. That is the only way that you can actually watch UFC in the USA.
But sports is sports. I'm telling you, and that UFC market has been horrendously exploited already, in my opinion, because those matches are, $6,500.
Yep.
And I you just look at the state of soccer and the invest dream, different leagues or whatever. It just gets crazy that those are very exploitive by nature. Whereas with movies, you have Netflix, you have Disney Plus, you have this idea that you can release the movies, I guess, like Trolls 2, where it's a rental at a pretty high price for a brief period of time, a weekend or whatever it is. I just find that it's a dangerous road because, Disney are flipping around and they're releasing New Mutants at the end of, the end of August? Because contractually, I found out why. They are obligated to release that movie in the theaters because it's a holdover from 20th Century Fox, and
Exactly.
it's cheaper to just release it than to renegotiate the contract and go straight to video. So they're going to be able to get it out on their streaming service come November, because it's a complete. They didn't spend any money on it. 20th Century did.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to follow up on. Is let's use the ESPN example for a second. How long does stuff stay exclusive? Like, can you watch a month-old fight?
Yep.
And when does stuff come out of the exclusivity? When does stuff come out of the paywall?
The pay-per-views don't. The pay-per-views are pay-per-views. So it's similar to Mulan, where you kind of own it, in a sense, and you can go back to it.
If I'm a guy who didn't buy it and I want to watch it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You have to pay.
Like, the full price?
Or whatever the replay price is.
Well, when does it go into replay price? Like,
Right
let's say
after-
it's
what-
$10
right
after.
Right after it's live. But the replay
geez.
price is not, it's full price. You're essentially paying full price again.
Geez.
At that point. But they get you. Like, that's the thing. Like, they're testing that strategy to the theater market. And I know that sports and family is different, but Disney is Disney. They're, of course, going to try this, see how much money they can make. Because there's another movie coming out November 6, 2020, that we don't really know what's going to happen. And we know, or at least we can speculate, that the reason why we don't know is because they're going to see the results of the Mulan test. Yep. Because on November 6th, 2020, Black Widow is slated to be released somewhere.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
I think that's also going to be like highly stitched in with what we were talking about, Tyler, with the obligations to the actors to do a theatrical release.
Yeah, that's there's all those contracts in the back end, and it brings in earlier, but like it's going to be uncharted territory with the Paramount decree winding back, right? Like, how much? Like, Disney is such a big company. Like, legitimately, can they just kind of go to Scarlett Johansson and be like, "Yeah, the movie's not going to theaters. What are you gonna do?"
It depends, I guess, on the contracts. I know that somebody like a Robert Downey Jr. in his contract had a percentage of gross, whatever it grossed. So who knows what type of contracts they have. If they don't have those types of contracts with the actors, I don't see this being a huge issue.
But what happens? Sorry, what happens if they turn around and they point to the big numbers of Mulan, and then they say, "Hey, guess what? We made X hundreds of millions on home delivery through subscription, and we're going to cut you 20% of that going forward because COVID."
I'm going to go actually even a darker route for a second, which is that a lot of contracts have force majeure clauses, which is basically if there's a war or something else bizarre and unforeseen happens, it can nullify parts of the contract.
Yeah.
And especially most of this is going to be under American jurisprudence, which is becoming incredibly pro-corporate.
Yeah.
And I think Boris has heard me talk about, I could have something in a contract, and admittedly I don't have the same cachet as RDJ, but a contract is only worth something if you can afford to enforce it. And even Robert Downey Jr., one of the highest paid members of the whole Disney stable, he's got pennies compared to what Disney can throw at a legal case if they want it.
Yeah, but do they want Robert Downey Jr. for Endgame too? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, they have to manage that, and that's really at the end of the day, like, that's what they're managing, from what I can tell. They're just trying to say which actors or actresses can we kind of do this to, and I hate to say it, but Mulan is probably prime on that front, because it's I don't even know what the casting's like, but I just think that it's just one of those films that we've already seen it. There's a lot of stuff that they can sit back and kind of throw into the mixer on that. It's a scary thing, and to further the corporate discussion, it also came out this week that basically Disney aren't distributing 4K. They're rolling back the physical discs now. They haven't said anything about Blu-ray, but they're going to basically the thought process is to not have people unsubscribe from Disney Plus at any point in time if they want to have certain titles in 4K, even though it's debatable whether or not you're getting the same experience compared to a disc, audio wise, video wise, whatever. I know streaming takes a hit in quality.
Yeah.
So it is a strategy, and we have to remember they changed CEOs, right? It's Bob Chapek now. Bob Iger is just managing. He's now just getting told what to do. I know that they had him kind of come back during this whole COVID and relaunching the parks thing, but he predominantly has been making his way out the door and is eyeing, a future presidential run. That much is pretty public.
Yeah.
I mean, back to your point of like who this cast is. I'm just looking at who the cast is for Mulan, and they've got some decent sized names in there.
Good.
Right? Like Jet Li.
Oh, that's a big one.
Like he plays the Emperor. I mean, Li Gong plays a decently major role. I think she's the villain after the rewrites. But she's like Memoirs of a Geisha, Miami Vice, a whole bunch of movies in China, Hannibal.
Again, these are all actors that are going to do well really overseas.
Yeah.
Right? Like these are targeted marketing actors. And it's a market that Disney desperately wants into.
And now
I'm not saying that with
to
discouragement.
add to this conversation is that in China, it will be a theatrical release.
True.
So,
yeah.
Disney is clearly just testing the waters.
Yeah. And I fully expect them to, as much as I don't like it, it is their property, and I'm choosing to be a customer.
They can do whatever they want to a certain extent contractually. It's just interesting. That $30 fee seems to be the sticking point with a lot of people. But technically, it makes sense.
I'd have a tough time watching this for free. Personally.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry.
It's not my movie. It's not. Boris won't be watching.
And that's not a discouragement to anybody who it is their movie. Go watch it. Have fun. Get the popcorn out. It's just you might be buying the Walmart popcorn instead of getting the good stuff if you got to pay $30 to watch it.
Yeah.
USD. That's like $7,000 Canadian.
Yeah.
You know what? I do think that I don't think they're going to be able to give out that $30 price point long term.
I can't see it working. Like if they really wanted to test me, they could sit there and say, "Okay, we're going to release Obi-Wan Kenobi, the new miniseries, and we're going to charge you $30, and we're going to let you watch it all in one go. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait week to week."
Yeah.
Right? There's going to be some weird crap that some boardroom comes up with. I'm going to be the week to week guy.
Yeah.
So it's but you know what? Me on a Friday night after a beer, maybe I do the $30 and I go, I want to see this all the way through because that first episode rocked. I don't know. There's a lot of strategic manipulation that goes on in not only these films, but the marketing and stuff like this. This doesn't feel as manipulative as it is just straight up strategic.
Well, here's my theory, kind of thinking on it. I think that for a brand new movie, it's gonna end up settling at somewhere in the $9.99 to $19.99 range. $10 to $20. I honestly think, to that strategic point, $30 was chosen because we're all talking about it.
$30 is just a good, like I said, it's about a third of what a average family of four would spend at the theater.
But also, people are hurting for money, and like I said, it gets them a bunch of free media coverage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't think the media coverage is good though. Like from what I've read, I know. I totally get that. Any media is good media, but from what I've read, most of the reporters are questioning that $30 price point, and most of the people they interview are like, sorry, man. But if you're telling me that it's $30 this week and then maybe 2 months or 3 months from now, it's just regular rollout free, I'm waiting for the rollout, but it gets to the point of what we talked about offline, and that's the Disney Vault strategy that seems to be coming back. And if they're going to start cycling movies aggressively in and out of their streaming service and discontinue physical copies like they used to do with VHS tapes. They've now got this platform to completely manipulate your mind and your pocketbook. So if they do release it in 4K, they create a rush. If they don't, then they've created a subscription, but they could take it away at any moment, so you have to invest to watch it. So now they're getting marketing data on what you're watching, where you're pausing, how complete you're watching titles to. How does that affect how they make movies in the future? Yep. If the average retention times are only certain X minutes, whatever. Like, there's a lot of data that we're just giving these services now. Oh, and 100%. They are monetizing that like crazy, everyone. We're in the test stage.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people don't like thinking about it, right? Like, data is becoming where the war is being fought, which I think leads us into our eventual discussion about some of this TikTok stuff and WeChat and all these companies. But that's the war that's going on, is our data, right? Like, this is countries trying to fight for our data and make sure that their corporations have the leg up for accessing, distributing, monetizing our data. That's what's really at stake. You know, that's what the Netflix algorithm is working on.
Yeah.
Is our data.
Yep. It's like, the data. I'll tell you how much data is worth. And this is a complete aside, but just to hit on Phil's point. Ancestry.com was just sold for $4.7 billion to Blackstone. What does Blackstone do? They are known as the Blackstone Group, and they are a private investment management company. Why? Why would they want a bunch of swabs of our DNA?
100%. All of a sudden, they have data to sell to pharmaceutical companies, Here's the percentage of people that have this gene or that gene.
It's huge money. It's absolutely huge. But when they know your watching habits, because that's the part that I had to wrestle through in my mind. It wasn't just that they know what I'm watching. It's that they know when I'm pausing it and what I'm doing with that media. That, I got to go take a piss. All right, I'm pausing it, or I forgot that I even was streaming it. You know what I mean? Like, or when did I fall asleep and the 3 episodes binged out? And then they know at that point what my habits are. They're really getting a view into my life. Oh, God.
It's so much worse than that, too, though, right? Because they also know. Like, let's say you watched Hitman's Bodyguard and you really liked that one scene where he drives whatever branded car, because they 100% show the logo, and I don't remember. But some people do, and even if it's subconscious of like, all right, they have the data of did you then go and look at that car at the dealership? Because it's going across all your devices, and it's plugging into Facebook and Google and Amazon, and all of it is setting that background for you. No, stop listening to me, phone. This is how bad it is.
Yeah, it's hilarious, right? And they can also tell when you're watching it, maybe when you're at work. You know what I mean? Like the times of day, your habits. Like these are things that you value as a human being, right? That, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. No one's really going to know. Not that anyone does that, but you know what I mean? There are certain times that maybe, you have some time and you may watch a movie or something that you don't necessarily would watch even, it's just a lot of stuff. It just becomes, and I don't want to be the paranoid guy. I don't want to be the guy telling you don't watch Netflix. But this is a big component of money and how money moves on those bigger levels. And Disney are driving their own rig full of cash wherever they want. They're empowering themselves to build a big creepy database.
Yep. Now, let's take off the tinfoil hats. Let's take off the conspiracy mindset, and let's just talk about the future of entertainment and the future of watching movies. I know we've talked about this a lot on the show, and I know that we've theorized that this would happen. But now that we're actually seeing this happen, and we're seeing the strategy being used, and by this I mean major companies using their own streaming services to release theatrical releases for a premium price, Do you foresee this possibly being the new norm? And I'm not talking about the price. Let's put price aside of the extra. But Tyler, do you think that this is now going to change the way that we consume movies?
I don't. I don't think it's going to work as well as they want it to. I mean, we're already seeing it with the balkanization of media, of piracy's way back up again.
I've always said that, yeah.
Right? You know, this, like, the household I'm in, we have Disney Plus, Netflix, and Amazon Prime, and we only have Amazon Prime because
Amazon.
Like, you get so many additions from it, and we shop on Amazon because, you know, we're middle class in a good month, and it's really hard to say no to spending less than half of what you're getting from the local store.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, and even now, like, we're missing stuff, and like it's not worth it for me to watch anything on HBO, and it's just like that's my life, I guess.
Yeah, it goes back
Yeah.
to what we talked about when we talked about, you know, the abundance of streaming services. And I will repeat something that I've repeated many times and that Tyler just repeated, and that's that piracy is going up because there's just so much money that one household, one person can spend on so many streaming services. And with everything being an exclusive, the only way that you can watch the shows that you actually want to watch is through piracy again. And that's the unfortunate part here. Phil, do you think this is the new norm?
I think I'll walk the line. My heart wants to agree with Tyler that it'll ultimately, you know, not really pan out in their favor, and therefore maybe some other methods will be explored. But I think for the next year, every company is going to be trying their ass off to make this happen, get the formula right, whether it be the price point, whether it be the distribution, whatever it is. Everybody's battling for eyeballs. HBO Max, Apple TV Plus, all this stuff, right? They're all fighting hard to get our attention and our money.
Yep.
And I just think that they're going to innovate to such a degree because of the pause, but the pause is twofold. The pause may have delayed a whole bunch of movies that were in the can or close to it, but it's also paused production. So on the out of this, we have a really big glut of nothing happening, right? Like everyone's just going to be rushing production to get back on TV or get in front of an audience.
I know a bunch of animated stuff started up again.
Yeah, and Dune 3, Dune, not Dune 3. Dune is doing its post-production remotely and aggressively trying to keep to their timelines. You know, I know that there's going to be content, but I think that a lot of live filming, we're seeing a lot of dates push really hard, right? Because we're going to get into reshoots, everything. Like, either corporations like Disney have to stop interfering to such a degree where they have to do 2-3 reshoots per film and just let the film stand to get to the audience. Mm-hmm. Or we're going to have huge delays going into 2022 for a lot of content.
I know we're now retreading the same ground as Halo, but I was doing some reading up on that stuff and the sheer number of delays we're seeing in the video game front. And it really seems like one of the things we're facing kind of across this board is over scope, right? Every single movie's trying to set up a cinematic universe or whatever now. And like, I genuinely think, especially when we can go out in the world a little bit more, or, you know, we're already starting to settle into a new normal. I think that once we get a little more settled into that new normal, it's not going to be the same hold as we have right now that Disney and the other companies have on us.
Well, I know I can wait.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned. my world doesn't end if I don't see Black Widow.
That's what I'm getting at, right? Is I think a lot of people are for the first chunk of this, we were all just like, oh my God, make the pain go away. Because it was rough and we were all terrified all the time. And I think now we're all kind of like,
just to clarify,
all right.
chunk of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to...
We had nowhere to go.
Pronouns,
we were all
pal.
terrified.
I said pronouns, pal.
What did I say?
This, that. Our listeners don't know what you're
fair.
talking about.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think that we're going to get to the other end of this. And we're going to see a lot of people are not going to give two shits about a lot of stuff coming out, speaking frankly.
I think a lot of people are going to be very distracted coming out of this. I think a lot of people are going to try to get their social lives back together, their social circles back together, their whatever they had going on before back in line. So I think entertainment is going to take a huge hit in the grand scheme of things, and people will be able to wait. Right now, video games are capitalizing beyond belief on us staying at home. We talked about Animal Crossing, and basically making Nintendo's year 2 years, So I think that in the grand scheme of things, Tyler, I 100% agree with you that I think that a lot of people can just wait, and they will wait. So it'll be very interesting to see whether this experiment actually pans out. But here's the issue. If the experiment doesn't pan out, is it because people don't want to pay or want to stream or have that premium pricing to a theatrical release movie? Or is it because people are just mediaed out, consumed and streaming out, and want to, live life for a little bit?
I think they're streamed out. I just think that people, they realize they don't need to eat out. They can order in. They can make their own food. They have skills. They can visit a park. They can go camping. They can do things that are more meaningful and tangible to their lives. Whereas the realization that the pandemic brought was just how shallow and empty some of this stuff is. All right. We all love a good show, but do we need to watch some of that crap we've watched because we were stuck inside? And just because you're throwing more crap at it, whether it be good crap or bad crap, the fact is that people just go, I don't want another night sitting in front of my TV. I'd rather go watch the meteor shower.
Yeah. Yep. Look, there's no way in hell Tiger King would have been as popular as it was if it didn't come out in the middle at the start of the pandemic. It would be a show that we would all be laughing about. But because we were all at home in some shape, way, or form, or home more than we normally are, it was, what are we going to watch right now? And it was that stupid show. So, I think we're all in agreement there that people are moving and entertainment out. And then, the thing is, though, we don't know how families are going to react. So I think at the core of it, because it's Mulan, because it's Disney, because it's a family movie, this strategy might work for that movie. I'm not convinced it's going to work for Black Widow.
But
I'm
Frozen 2.
Yeah. I'm also in the opposite camp of you on that one, Boris. And it's solely because, like you're like, oh, it's Mulan. All right, but they took out the dragon, and there's no songs.
It's still a... I know where you're going with that, but it's still a kids movie in the sense, and it's funny because Mulan is not a kids movie. It's like the one remake that they made that is so far from the cartoon that this is like, a full-on non-Disney movie. Like, they could have branded it as one of their other companies if they really wanted to.
Oh,
yeah,
agreed.
But it's a Disney property.
Yeah. So I think because it's...
Let's look at it for what it is. It's them performing the grand experiment on North America and making a movie that's completely targeted at doing well in other markets.
Yeah.
Like, this is all just bonus cash.
Yeah. Exactly.
It literally is the cherry on the cake for them. Same as New Mutants. They had no horses in that race. It's other people's money.
Neither did Fox.
Like it's 5 years to make it.
Yep. It's going to be hilarious watching like Macy Williams still a kid in that movie.
Jeez, yep.
It's going to be a mind mess. The more I read about that, I saw some fan base out there giving feedback to other entities about it. That's why I bring it up, because I happened to trip across it, and I'm like, oh, so this is being held up as one of the fanboy cards as to why don't you do New Mutants like that? So
yeah.
It's interesting.
All right. I think we're starting to circle the drain on this topic. We've had some good discussion. Angry Boris came out. Angry host Boris came out. And that's okay. So the other thing that we wanted to talk about was TikTok, was ByteDance, what all of this means, and what it actually doesn't mean, and what it could actually affect. We're going to try very hard not to get too political, for obvious reasons. I don't want our show shut down. I don't want to be followed by more people. Fun fact, listeners, Toronto Police Services used to have Phil and Boris's faces up on a wall somewhere, and we used to be followed by Toronto Police. If anyone wants to hear that story, we can say it one day.
Huh?
I don't think it was Toronto Police.
No, it was a little higher than that.
It was a little higher than that. Yeah.
It started
Oh, no.
with TPS. Anyways,
No, they did.
that's former life. Now we are being tracked 100%. So actually, let's get on track. What is going on with TikTok? For those of you who don't know, TikTok is super popular, and it's known for hosting short videos where teenagers, celebrities, creators often dance or lip sync to viral audio clips. It's all fun and games, right? Well, here's the thing. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, a Chinese internet company. And as we all know, China loves their freedom, loves their privacy, and are protecting our information because they're all about freedom and privacy. Right, Phil? Right, Tyler?
I thought you said we weren't getting political. Like, instantly.
How? Okay, but the reality is, like, it's just a fact. I'm not
Everything
being
that I want to say is political right now, too.
Yeah.
Hey, one of you guys do this intro then.
Look, I think we need to acknowledge it. We need to accept that this is an inherently political issue, and we're going to try to mitigate how much our own personal politics shapes our report.
Yeah. We'll try not to be too controversial.
So here's the thing.
Facts are exactly what we circled in our last discussion. These companies, like, because we're talking about other things like WeChat, and we're talking about other companies that maybe other video games or other apps in the store that are potentially being targeted by the same behavior from governments. And not only is it the US government, we can also point to India. They banned TikTok, which kind of started this wave. Now, you know, it potentially could follow into companies like Tencent, who I know a lot of gamers are aware of their involvement in video games like Fortnite and whatnot. Epic Mega Games, they own 40%.
I think we need to go. I think we need to go a little bit deeper in what Tencent owns, because
and they own more than that, exactly.
I was going to say, because and I gotta do my due diligence here. I have a law degree, but I'm not a lawyer. None of this is legal advice. All that yada yada. Don't rely on anything I'm saying for. I don't know. It's
opinion.
Yeah, this is opinion. But, you know, if we go the absolute most apocalyptic vision that some people are reporting, which is that, you know, it's all cut down limited. Like, here's a list of what Tencent owns. Riot Games. So that's League of Legends. They own that outright. They own Funcom. They own Shark Mob. They own the majority of Grinding Gear games. They own the majority of Supercell, which is Clash of Clans. They also own minority shares in Marvelous, Netmarble, Glue Mobile, Kakao, Frontier Developments, Activision and Blizzard.
I have to be
Paradox
so careful about what I say right
Huh?
now. I have to be so careful about what I say right now.
Ubisoft, Bluehole. Like what? Oh, Boris is losing it.
Yeah. Go ahead, guys. Have fun with this chat.
All right. You know, like if we go
It's
the
a lot.
absolute, yeah, if we go the absolute most apocalyptic vision, that's bad for all those companies.
And you know what? It all kind of, this is what is complicating to it all. It seems very reactive. All right.
Oh,
I
is.
don't know that the people proposing these changes, i.e., the politicians, are really looking at how far reaching this has gotten. Maybe they are. You know, I could be wrong. Maybe this is a way for them to start dismantling that. I don't know. But under the terms of the TikTok sale, obviously Microsoft have come forward as being a suitor for this purchase.
Mhm.
You know, we're talking $1 trillion, like trillions of dollars for Microsoft, right? So they're looking at picking this thing up for between 30 and 50 billion is the current valuation that's being thrown about.
Sure.
One thing to note about TikTok is they have an American CEO
Yep.
and all their servers are actually located in America.
Yep.
So they're not physically somewhere else, which is a contentious point that gets brought up in a lot of the reading that I've done. And came out this week that now Twitter are interested in possibly purchasing. Microsoft being the front runner in the sense that they don't have any horses in the race for, you know, real like social media stuff.
Yeah.
They were the one company that wasn't called the Capitol Hill to talk about issues, but
Antitrust.
goodness knows they've had it in the past.
Yeah, they got early 90s. They got hammered with antitrust.
Yep. So now they're being looked to it.
Yep.
And then on top of it all, you know, the thing that makes Twitter fall apart to me is that valuation on that company is like 29 billion as it stands right now. So they can't spend 29 billion at the low watermark. So that is a complicated purchase if they're going to facilitate
Yeah.
it.
So
Fascinating.
just to take a step back, you know, this is a two-pronged issue here. Essentially, the issues that the United States of America government has right now with TikTok is that it is owned by that Chinese internet company ByteDance, and the second is that, you know, because it is China, people are increasingly afraid that, you know, that it's being influenced by Beijing, and what they mean by that is that, you know, tracking your info, collecting your info, selling your info, and things like that. That's the fear. That's what the core of this issue is. So they essentially don't want to participate in that because, you know, obviously they want the thought process is that they, being the American government, don't want to give up the citizens' information. Now here's where this gets a little more interesting. You know, taking out the president of the USA and whatever personal issue he might have with the actual company, you know,
As far as campaigns go.
exactly.
Campaign speeches.
You know, at the core of it, you know, when you start talking about safety and internet security, it kind of does make sense. You don't know what these companies are doing. Other countries have already banned TikTok or are in the process of banning TikTok because, you know, we can look at all of the issues with the 5G networks and Huawei. You know, it's all of these concerns are still there. The issue is there's two issues in the grand scheme of things. How can you enforce such a ban? Is it legal? The question quickly there is no.
Well,
And, you know, the other major issue is that, you know, by banning this, you're essentially adding a lot of other companies, like we just talked about, in this ban. So how are you regulating what is or is not involved in such a ban?
I have a point to bring up as well because this is being brought up this week and it's very topical.
okay.
What does the ban mean? Does it mean that Google has to take it off of their store and Apple as per se? Does it mean that they have to take that off their store in China? Because if Apple has to take TikTok off of its store in China, that's going to directly affect 20% of their sales in China. So 20% of their business is potentially under threat, depending on clarification of what it actually means to them.
Yeah, because
so I actually have answers to these points.
Go ahead, Tyler. Sorry.
I actually I know this. So Boris is right. Boris is right. One of the big questions is this legal or not? And none of us are the lawyers in the case, and it's complicated. Basically, what we're seeing is on one side you have the national security boogeyman, which rightly or wrongly is being brought up, and Trump is using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the IEEPA, which hypothetically, if he can demonstrate a national security risk, he is allowed to ban transactions between American entities and foreign entities. How that's done is it's done through the Department of Commerce, who then goes through and they say, like, all right, what does a ban look like? So historically, we look at Huawei in the example. So it's Google and Apple weren't allowed to offer any relevant apps and support in the States, and then elsewhere it was done on a more piece-by-piece basis. So it ends up coming down to kind of a combination of the Attorney General and to the Secretary of Commerce, on the ground.
Hey, you know what? Under that, I don't know that I have a huge issue.
I mean,
with TikTok, you know what I mean? And as well, just to show you what's going on with the rest of the companies in that kind of media world, Instagram released Reels, which is basically music that's already licensed and paid for.
Yeah. Same.
And it's a direct competitive product. Yeah. So the competitors are getting out there that want to be in on that market, and TikTok are just ratcheting up the pressure on the states and the user base by dangling $2 billion now, I think,
100%.
out to pay their content providers, their biggest content providers, and to try and keep them all from leaving the platform, because they lost a huge chunk in India, right? Like that's a lot of people.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the laws that's already I think it's being debated right now in the States, is banning TikTok specifically on government-owned phones, which is very different from TikTok can't operate in the States. And there's plenty of stuff that is, not allowed on government phones, the same way that you're not allowed to use, you're not allowed to watch porn on your company phone. There are rules to having a phone owned by a larger entity than yourself. On the other side of it, legally, there's a bunch of free speech questions. And, Boris kind of brought up, there's a bunch of freedom of commerce questions.
Yeah, but I think the states, let's say, I don't know that they can force a sale, but they could probably negotiate the removal from the Apple Store and from the Google Play Store.
Yep.
Right? And just say, hey, look, we're not cool with this, not only on government phones, that's already a rule, but we're just going to say for the general public, because we believe that there is a threat.
Yeah.
I don't know that, I think maybe it's a little too much too late, or too little too late, but at least it's an attempt if there's a genuine threat that's demonstrable, right?
I think that's the key right there, is that
their answer is to sell it, right?
Yeah.
And here's the selling piece. It's only for the States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia.
Yep.
So that's the package that's up for sale. And probably some other some other countries too. But basically, it's just looking at, if the States bans it, who else is going to ban it? Well, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, right? So they're trying to package that out in the sale, because, hey, $40 or $50 billion is better than no $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's really the play here, right? And then the rest of it is a lot of worry about the further tentacles of the octopus.
And that's exactly it. And I think that's something that I kind of want to clarify, is that, and by no means are we going to see a full-blown ban.
Yeah, kids, Fortnite will still be there.
Exactly. Riot Games, all you junglers, can calm down. You'll still be able to jungle
I mean,
on League of Legends.
funny enough, on that specific point, the Trump administration has specifically said we might ban Tencent, but we're not banning League of Legends.
Yep.
Which is one of my favorite things of like, what? Do you know what happens here?
Yeah. It's just very funny. And I think that's a thing, you know, and this is the issue and why communication is key and why sometimes the administration that's there right now needs to, just like Microsoft, have better communication because there's a lot of questions being raised and this affects so much. This affects the entertainment. This affects video games. This affects so many industries. You know,
man, I need my Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's just so many things that could be affected. So I think, you know, one of the things I really wanted to do was kind of talk and let this simmer for a few days, and we try to bring as much information as we can find. And, you know, clearly they're trying to identify exactly what this quote-unquote ban means. They're trying to make it actually legal. And you know what? Where I stand on this is that if, you know, it's a very complicated situation at the end of the day. But, you know,
Tyler killed it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, but I've seen so much analysis, fear, and speculation on the internet. And Tyler basically just basically like Rubik's cubed it.
Yep.
I have moments. I do want to add 2 points on top of it. Two interesting little tidbits of
lawyer disclaimer here.
No, not that.
I'm teasing.
First of all, TikTok has said we are filing on Tuesday, which is today as of time of recording. That won't get reported on until tomorrow at the absolute earliest. So
their IPO.
Hmm?
Are you talking about their IPO or?
No, they're filing to sue the administration.
Oh, yeah.
They're suing the American government.
Yeah, I did read about that.
They're suing under freedom of speech and a couple other jurisdictions. So we might get the knockdown drag under freedom of speech versus national security.
Yeah.
The other point is the deadline set was 45 days, which puts the ban date, if one actually happens, about September 20th.
Yep.
Yep.
That's a lot of pressure on the big old Microsoft to get a deal done, because not only are they getting the deal done with a Chinese company, they're getting a deal done with the American government and the Chinese government too. Like, there's a lot of foreign entities that have concerns, legitimate concerns, and points that need to be very, very closely covered and monitored in the breakup, if it happens, of that component. Right? It's a mindfall. I don't envy anybody who's having to, and, you know, do it in 45 days, which these deals, you know, it's not like a car. You know, it's not, we have the money here, take this truckload.
You'd fit so much customer data inside this bad boy.
Closing on houses is more time than they have to sort their ducks in a row.
Look at any time a big company buys anything, like Google buying Fitbit. You know, it's hitting roadblocks now. It was a year and a bit. You know, Disney buying 20th Century Fox. You know, it went through like months of just back and forth and negotiations, and Comcast in there just ratcheting it up, you know, trying to get that material out of there, trying to get the own it.
As we're talking about all of this, and I know I'm just like, right now I'm just going to like blow up the entire discussion that we had. Because that's what I do. That's what Angry Boris does sometimes.
Sure.
You guys remember Vine?
Yep.
Is anyone going to give a shit about TikTok in 2 years?
I mean, that's been my theory behind the entire thing.
You know?
Like,
yeah. Like, I look at that app, it's not an app for me. It can disappear tomorrow. I don't care. You know, I've seen anecdotal stuff on Twitter that says there's a lady that does a mocking of the president where she word for word his speeches in a comedic way. I've seen her stuff.
Yeah.
She's brilliantly funny. People thinking that maybe the administration is taking an issue with her. I've seen it suggested that after the Tulsa, Oklahoma fiasco, that maybe the administration is upset because apparently they used TikTok to facilitate a lot of information and knowledge on how to disrupt that event. Yep. I don't think that that's really the case here. I think I'm going to have to say there's probably some concern.
On top of it all, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We've all been home. We've all been stir crazy. We've all been crazy. Yeah. So people have taken to these apps.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's be honest, I knew of TikTok. They had a bunch of issues. This isn't the first time issues with TikTok have come up. They used to have a huge issue with their end user license agreement or lack thereof, and minors signing up to TikTok. And I don't want to open up that can of worms, but that was an issue before. But before the pandemic, only so many people heard about TikTok. We were all bored. We were all learning how to bake bread, learning how to make videos and dance like idiots. So I feel like this is a fad in the grand scheme of things, and I feel like we're putting in a lot of effort into something so minor.
Can I put my tinfoil hat on for a second, though?
Go ahead.
Not a full tinfoil hat. This is just a thought that occurred to me. So there was a news release in the last 72 hours that was basically, and I might have been misreading it, but my reading of it was that it was all but proven that Facebook had preferentially targeted, had given preferential treatment to conservative groups, for a variety of reasons. And then if you look at historically, YouTube for quite a long time had an algorithm that heavily favored what's euphemistically called the alt-right or the manosphere or whatever other thing. And, from talking to people who are younger and hipper than me, it sounds like TikTok may have an algorithm that goes a bit the other way. And I wonder...
Yep.
That's all.
You're not the first person to bring this up.
That's the hat.
You're not the first person to bring this up. We're in the middle of probably one of the most important election seasons that we're going to have in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
The American election is huge regardless of where you live in the world. I feel that 2020 is a major one for obvious reasons. We've seen some interesting plays by the administration, by everyone. Not just in the administration, just in general, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're in. So,
and even follow that up with the timeline to reinforce it.
Yeah. That's why I'm so glad that we brought up the number of days right in the middle of the election. It's going to be hot, So all these things add fuel to the fire, of course. And the whole thing is it's like there's still so many open questions.
I can see the ad now.
Oh my God.
Oh, 100%.
He's saving your data. Yep. He's fighting for America.
Protecting you from foreign interests.
Yeah. Yep.
I can just see it now with the flag in the background, his head on Mount Rushmore. It's all happening.
Not going to be political. We're not going to be political. We're not going to be political.
No, I'm okay with whatever. I'm not saying it's bad or good. I just saying, I read the news, man. I see the headlines. I don't know what they mean. I just learned how to read.
Reality has a very strong anti-Microsoft bias. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. There's just so much to really decompress from all of this. But at the core of it, we have an app with shit, let's put it in podcasting hip terms. We have an app with shady owners who may or may not be doing shady things, and we want to make sure that we control our information. So what can we do? We can quote unquote ban it. What banning means is still up for debate and is being constantly debated. So at the core of it, that's what's going on. Why people are doing stuff can be debated and will be debated for many years to come. But at the end of the day, we have an app that may or may not be doing shady stuff or could be doing shady stuff with your data. Meanwhile,
And really, will we care?
you know, it's funny that you bring that up, and let's just have this conversation at this point. Why not? I remember when I was in my previous employer, BlackBerry, you know, the debate was always up in terms of, you know, BlackBerry, we kept your information secure, blah, 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 blah. Android and Apple did not. They don't care, blah, 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 blah. So a lot of debate internally with a lot of people and in the tech world in general was that a lot of people at the end of the day said the public actually doesn't care about their information. And, you know, at the core of it, I think that's true, but subconsciously that's true, but in reality it's not. Because we've all seen those stupid things on Facebook. How many times do you match up with some flower or something where you give God knows how much information, and all of that information is going to God knows what server, and you're accepting the companies to do this? You know, that's
They're marketing flowers to you?
well, I don't know what the fuck they're marketing to me. That's what I'm saying. Like, what
Like,
you know,
here's a petunia?
I don't know. What flower are you? You know, what does your astrological sign, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
One of those stupid
I had to
things.
stop clicking on that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. You know? So,
I
and then
realized what it was.
that's a perfect example of, do we actually care about our information and our privacy? Or how much do we actually care? Or is it because it's being hidden, we're just willy-nilly clicking away, not realizing what's actually happening in the background? So, that, like I said, just some food for thought at this point. So,
Hey,
you know,
there's a big...
and here's the thing. At the end of the day, we're talking about fucking TikTok. We have Facebook. We have Google.
Yeah.
here in North America, and no one's saying anything.
Facebook and Google are making lots of money off of our data. We know it. We don't know it. But look, you know, Google's listening to me now.
Yeah,
So,
I was going to say, all of our phones are like, they're on it to us.
yeah, exactly.
Shut them down.
It's just the fact is like, there are some things where I go, my life is so mundane. Is it really that valuable to people to know? Is it such a crime to know that, you know, I went to bed last night at 10:45 and I woke up at 7 and, you know, did my job and then I watched, like, you know, The Old Guard on Netflix? Like, what?
Yes, I need to know
They
that.
can convince you to watch Old Guard too.
Yeah, it's just that's been the counter argument to it, right? And I got to say, I've used it myself because I think that I'm a rather unremarkable subject. However, they see me as a dollar sign or a credit score or whatever, right? They're looking to slide those ads in and whatnot. But I'm consciously removing a lot of that stuff, from that clutter from my life. I'm not, you know, don't hit me up on Facebook because I don't go there, right?
Yep.
Like it really is. If I go there, it's to enjoy a fandom type thing, because it's only accessible through there.
Yep.
Turning off personal ads in Twitter, like people, if you can control a certain amount of it, and those are in the settings, and those are in those options, and you got to read, right? And you got to turn them off and just say, hey, look, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to live my life. But I also enjoy the convenience. All right. I love that my phone answered me. I love that I can, you know, find places to go and select to get my takeout or whatever, like reviews. There are things that are worthwhile participating in, and it's worth checking it out. You know, don't be so afraid of your own shadow. Tyler?
I mean, the other side of it is we live in the most boring cyberpunk dystopia. And I now have ads. I cannot not have ads in my own home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
it's on my home computer. I turn on my television, and I'm not watching anything. Just like the loading screen, there's ads.
Yep.
My phone is giving me ads all the time. They're in my house now.
Yep. Exactly. That's
Big Brother died and was eaten by the corporation.
Yeah, 100%. It's just
It's in your
crazy.
Insta feed.
Convenience, what's the price of convenience? We're seeing it right now.
Yeah, but my PS4 sounded like a jet taking off, and it told me that those 3D printed legs were pretty cool, and they were.
It's funny.
Yeah, right.
It's funny because when we talked about that, guess what ads I started seeing right away?
3D printers.
3D
No,
printers,
the legs.
but the legs also. So
there is this component of it that I know everybody says it doesn't happen, but I've basically triangulated it on a few occasions where I've had an audio conversation similar to this, where I mention a product or a place, a restaurant that is way outside of my hamburgers and French fries kind of life. All right. And then those ads start showing up in my phone. And I know they say they don't listen when they're not supposed to be listening. If I don't say the magic words, Amazon's not listening. The googly thing isn't listening. And yet, man, oh man, I mentioned Captain Boils once.
Oh.
And I got Captain Boils all over the place. So we did an experiment one night because you can actually do live chat on Sony PlayStation, right? So your chat with your group can actually be transcribed into a PDF or some kind of text document, and it will actually read it back while you're playing. So it's kind of funny that you can just read back. So we started putting products in there that none of us would ever buy or research, like Huggies diapers.
Yep.
Because we don't have kids. Or some of us who have kids don't have kids that would use Huggy diapers. And not once did any of that show up. So kudos, Sony. Thank you for not monetizing or exploiting me.
That time.
That time.
That
I don't
time.
know.
Yeah. I'm just doing some additional research on the spot, and I'm finding I have
People swear by it.
I have a Microsoft ad right now, right in front of me, and I'm like, fuck you guys.
No.
Fuck you, Microsoft.
Is it for the Series X? Halo Infinite?
Let's see. I'm seeing Nvidia. I'm seeing Sony. I'm seeing Microsoft Word. No, nothing that we talked about today.
Sometimes it's, it is very well targeted because God knows how many times I Google Microsoft or Sony or whatever, looking for a meme, looking for an article, looking for data, right? Like tangible stuff. Or my YouTube has, guess what? It's probably going to know Phil's going to look at the new Hasbro Black Series figure. It knows what I like. I get it. But the Captain Boils thing was weird. I don't know. It was the one time where I could really put a bow on it because the guy I was talking to about, we were in a car, and he's allergic to seafood.
Uh-oh.
So it was just weird that I had that experience because it wasn't like him, wanting to be a willing participant in the conversation. He just asked me, have you ever been to Captain Boils? And I'm like, no, I never have been. I lived around the corner from one. Never went.
Yeah.
Wanted to. And then boom, like 4 days of ads.
Yeah.
I never clicked on it, but it was interesting.
I find
maybe just coincidence because I was in a geographic region that had a new one, and maybe they were putting out a push.
Yeah, maybe.
And they tracked my GPS and knew, hey, he's in the zone. Be nice if he came by.
The worst for me
Had
is
some
always
lobster.
The worst for me is always Amazon. Anytime I do any search on Amazon, I'm just bombarded by constant ads after the fact.
That one and EB Games are getting really aggressive.
Yeah,
as well as my daily email or hourly email from Netflix lately.
The Netflix
Ever
is
since
getting really
Disney
bad.
Plus.
Yeah, EB Games is a little like I'm getting about 5 or 6 emails a day from EB Games nowadays.
If you use their website for anything, you're getting 4 emails.
Yep.
Telling you that item is now back in stock, telling you that item is now on sale, or telling you that items that other people have looked at that are similar to that are really worth your money. It's creepy. Because I actually clicked one and got my Boba Fett helmet that way.
And it worked. And it worked.
I was like, damn you, it's out of stock.
That is That's brilliant. But you see, that's this is going back to our point. We're not veering too far from our point. Well, our new point, and it's kind of like the convenience of it can sometimes outweigh other stuff. But I don't know. To each their own. It's hard. It's a hard one. It's a hard one for sure. Tyler,
Be careful, peeps.
yeah, be careful. Don't click on stuff willy nilly. Please be careful.
Click on
still.
everything.
Tyler, any final thoughts?
No, it's all a mess.
It is a mess.
Sad.
And I hope that we were able.
Drink.
Yeah, and I hope that we were able to clarify. We need to start drinking again when we record this. Remember when we started the show, how hammered we used to be?
Oh, some of those episodes.
Yep. Well, it was something. Bill, any final thoughts?
No, just be safe. Watch yourself out there. That's basically it. That's all we can do. Other people are
Wear
doing
a
it for
mask.
us. Wear a mask.
Yep. And I hope that I hope that we were able to clarify things a little bit, add a little context to what's actually happening or not happening, or how it could happen or not happen. Because that's what we do here on the It's Canon podcast.
Save Martha.
Yeah. And if people want to come and find us, because you already found this one, but maybe you want to find us and tell us stuff about you or your ideas or what you thought of it.
Give us your personal information.
Yeah.
Give me your credit card information. Leave the room. Don't worry about it.
Use our
You can
contact.
go to our
Use or contact us on our website at www.itscanonpodcast.com.
podcast.com or our Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at It's Canon Podcast. Email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, wherever you find podcasts. If you like what you hear so far, make sure you never miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button. And please reach out to us. Thank you so much for all of your support.
Thank
God,
you
he's good
so
at that.
much. It's always fun. We always have a blast doing this show. And like I said, I hope that we were able to give you some information to clarify the muddy waters, but it's muddy waters indeed. And until next time on the It's Canon podcast, the only podcast where we talk about all things, everything, and they're all in canon. I can't think of anything witty to say, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So thank you, everyone. I was joined this episode, by Phil, by Tyler, and I'm Boris. Thank you so much to everyone. Good night. Microsoft sucks. And that's that.